Thank you for showing up.
Very engaged citizen.
Taos Valley ACEQUIA Association is really grateful that you all showed up. We're here today to talk about, actually to have a conversation back and forth about the Taos Valley water rights settlement. And so it isn't, I don't think I'm prepared to give like a speech. I can't be rather long-winded, but I'm kind of suffering from juniper, and bear with me. But it's really, you notice we try to do a circle so that we're having a conversation with each other, not talking at each other. But that we hope we can engage pretty much as a community so we can talk about the settlement, talk about any questions that you might have about the settlement. And more importantly, I think it would be this.
Thank you.
I'm the current president of the Taos Valley ACEQUIA Association. I'm a parciante on the ACEQUIA Abajo de la Loma, Llano Quemado, and on the ACEQUIA Madre del Rancho del Rio Hondo, which is on the south, basically goes from Calpa all the way down through Ranchos, La Corriera, east back into the Rio Hondo down near Blackstone. And my parents are on the ACEQUIA de los Loatos and Ranchitos. So, pretty much that's where my passion for the ACEQUIA comes from, is being raised in the culture and the traditions of the ACEQUIA. Unfortunately, I was tagged to serve as the president of the Taos Valley ACEQUIA Association, but I do that certainly because of the love I'm sure that we all share with the ACEQUIAs. So, without saying too much more, if we can start here and we'll wind our way back, get to know each other, and then we'll move around the rest of the room.
I'm Robert Martinez. I'm the vice president of TVAA, and I'm a commissioner on ACEQUIA Madre de la Loma de Ranchitos Abajo.
I'm Sylvia Rodriguez. I'm a commissioner on the ACEQUIA de San Antonio in Valdez, and I'm the secretary of the TVAA.
My name is Jeff Plant, and I am the environment and agriculture reporter at the Taos News.
My name is Dan Greenwald, and I'm on the Desmontes there.
Vicente Fernandez, I'm a member of the TVAA. I'm also mayordomo on the ACEQUIA Madre del Sur del Cañón de Rio Fernando. I'm also a board member of the Cañón MDWCA.
Excuse me, I'm David Munoz. I'm treasurer on ACEQUIA de los Lobatos, the Rio Pueblo del Taos, and member of the TVAA board.
Hi, Jane Dunlap, and I'm on the Desmontes.
I'm Anjanette Brush, different county commissioner, and Taos County commissioner for this district.
Bob Blair, I'm on the ACEQUIA de Atalaya. I'm
Marsha Reedy, and I'm on the San Antonio Dixon Valdez.
My name is Kevin Bursell, and I'm the commissioner on the ACEQUIA de San Antonio in Valdez.
My name is Jose Romero, and we use the ACEQUIA Madre to irrigate all our fields and grow crops, and it's not just for water rights, it's to actually feed our animals and do everything.
My name is Krista Valdez. I just moved back. I grew up here, and I think I'm on the De La Plaza ACEQUIA, so I am excited to be here and just learn more.
My name is Melissa Ortiz. I'm here from Arroyo, and I've used the ACEQUIAs my entire life.
I'm Travis Peter, I'm here from Arroyo.
I'm Gloriana Atencio, and I'm on the Atalaya Parciate. This is my husband, Lily Atencio, and I was a commissioner for like 20-some years on the ACEQUIA de Atalaya.
I'm Alicia Walks. I'm on the Llano de Atalaya.
used to be a commissioner on the Manuel and Arroyo.
Kevin Yancey, I'm the president of the Terminal Owners Association. We're a level of reference right in the middle of our property in Terminal.
I'm Tomas Montoya, newly appointed mayordomo Cuchillado de los Montes. Elías Espinosa, Acequia, San Antonio, and our operating for the
Jim Leverage, and I'm on the ACEQUIA Madre Italiano.
I'm Carlos Mena, and I'm the commissioner on the Desmontes ditch.
I'm Audrey Spilley, and I live in the Agua land grant and Little Creek. We normally go through my property, I'm actually down for irrigation. I'm Lorinda Teeter, my mother is Pat Vilda, and we were big up through the section.
Thank you. Let's start here.
I'm Ann Echeverry, I'm on the Desmontes ditch.
I'm Peggy Hamill, I'm on the Desmontes ditch. I'm Mary Ann Elder, and unfortunately, I am not a Parciante. I don't have any water rights, but I'm on the board of the Lower Desmontes Neighborhood Association.
Lee Farrower, I'm commissioner in the Revolse. Also have alfalfa pastures off the Desmontes.
Kevin Vasquez, and I'm on the ACEQUIA Madre.
I'm Esther Rivera, and I'm a Parciante on the Desmontes. Priscilla Sayed. I'm a Parciante on the ACEQUIA de San Antonio, previous commissioner of the ACEQUIA San Antonio, and previous associate director of the Taos Valley ACEQUIA Association, Arroyo Hondo Grant.
Bienvenidos. Me llamo Orlando Ortiz. I'm the commissioner of the ACEQUIA Madre del Llano y mayordomo and president of the Rio Hondo land grant. Muchas gracias.
Elías Ontiveros, I'm a Parciante of San Antonio ACEQUIA Valdez. Cliff Bain, I'm a commissioner on the ACEQUIA de Atalaya and Arroyo Hondo.
I'm Pam Harris, and my husband and I live on the ACEQUIA del Llano, Madre del Llano, and we own a farm in Lower Hondo, and there's cattle on it. My husband gave up his cattle, but now a neighbor uses the property, and we have a big greenhouse, and we also have some property in Seco, and so we're on the Lucero too.
I'm Phaedra Greenwood, and I'm a Parciante and commissioner on the Atalaya, and here to help spread the news.
Matthew Hayner, concerned citizen, live in Taos Valley. You might better know me from the recent news article, Big Al's Road. Thank you, Jeff. That's all. Thank you.
Bob Callan, Parciante on the ACEQUIA Madre.
Bob Fees, Parciante, ACEQUIA Madre.
Brett St. Clair, user of the Madre.
Aaron Kaplan, I live in farm. I'm on the Del Llano and the Atalaya.
Good afternoon, Mona Nojek, I'm Taos Valley Community Relations Manager and Presidente of the Revolse Ditch, and I'm from Taos Pueblo.
Alfred Trujillo, I'm a Parciante of the ACEQUIA Madre del Llano, here in Arroyo Hondo, former commissioner, former mayordomo, one of two founders of the Taos Valley ACEQUIA Association. Contrary to the misinformation that's out there, Eduardo Lavadi and I did all the legwork to convene those 55 in the early stages. A lot of legwork was done by Eduardo and myself, and I just wanted to make that clear.
Alfred knows a lot about the ditches.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
I'm Luis Herrera, I'm a Parciante of the ACEQUIA Madre del Llano here in Arroyo Hondo, and I was witness to what Alfred just said.
Yolanda Lewis, I'm the mayordomo for the Revolse Ditch.
Floyd Archuleta, member of the TVAA and president of the Lower Desmontes Neighborhood Association, and I'm on the Revolse Ditch.
And I'm Dean Archuleta, I'm a commissioner on the Revolse Ditch, and also a former member of TVAA.
Lloyd Archuleta, member of the Taos Water Conservation Board,
We irrigate off the Revarsa ditch. George, let them run the Revarsa ditch.
David Fedlin Arroyo from Bandes, previous commissioner on the Pando ditch and the San Antonio ditch, currently a Parcialty on the San Antonio ditch.
Carlos Arroyo, a member of the TVAA board and commissioner on the Seca del Monte de Rio Chiquito in Tampa.
Mike Zilli of KCI Radio.
My name is David Garcia. I'm with the Mexico Acequia Association. I'm from the community of Agua, which is in Rio Riva, and I am the cultural promotor cultural de acequias from the Mexico Acequia Association. I guess I'd like to think about it as I'm a peón de la cultura de las acequias. My tarea is to affirm and spread the good message of acequias and how important they are to our lives.
Thank you, David. And in that regard, before we get started, if we could impose on you, David, to sing that, basically, the song that brings us all together normally before the Vida. Oh, yes. Make sure you sign in so that we can be in touch, of course, and certainly be good to know how many of us there are.
I guess it's a real great honor to be here with everyone today. I brought my guitar. I've gotten to play for a lot of ACEQUIA meetings throughout the state, and it's an honor to always be invited to your ACEQUIA meetings. I know a lot of people are having their annual meetings. I would be welcome. I would be honored if you'd invite me and if I can affirm what you're doing, the work you're doing, because the future of our ACEQUIAs are with you and with your children and with your family and townsfolk. And so as we see a lot of our elders age out of being commissioners, we need younger commissioners. I'm a former commissioner. I'm not aged out, but I'm a former commissioner of the ACEQUIA de los Salazares. And I want to share a story with you after I brought this cup of water. And I would like to think about it as perhaps a centering place for our thoughts today. And it's something about what do we think about the culture of the ACEQUIAs? What is shared? What circulates through our communities in terms of thinking about cultural values? And it's a story that Dr. Rodriguez talks about in her books, but it was an experience that I had firsthand. I'm going to put my guitar down for a second. And raise your hands if I start telling this story and you remember this. And so when I was young, my grandmother, her name was Francisca Loato, sorry. Paz descanse. Your grandma, she would always say on the 24th of June, she would send me to any of the rivers, any of the streams, the ACEQUIA, to go get her a frasco of water. Because she said, ese día, todas las aguas corren benditas. And it didn't have to be blessed by a priest. It didn't have to be, and it gave me a sense of, so I would bring her this cup of, this frasco. And oftentimes, this is the story I think is shared quite often. She would ask me, "Tráeme agua." And who here has heard this story? "Tráeme agua." And so what I do is I go to the sink, or sometimes often people would have to go to the well, sacar una cubeta de la noria, and we would, bring it inside, bring the elder water. And so today I think Marcia, I came here with an empty cup and asked Marcia if she had some water there. And she gave me some water for this story. And so my grandma would ask me for the water, and she would say, "Tráeme agua." And what she would do then, I would bring her the water. and I would hand it to her, and she would drink it. She would drink the water, and it would take a long time. Who here knows what I was supposed to be doing? Waiting, but is there another part of the story, perhaps? Anybody remember?
I do.
Tenía que.
I remember that on the Dia de San Juan, on the 24th of June, we were to go to the nearest waterway, usually in ACEQUIA, and they would say, mojate la modera. You would get a scoop of water and you would put it on your head.
¿Por qué? Porque if people go before the Día de San Juan, te picaba el agua.
So it's really, there's all this stuff that I les encargo a ustedes. Yo soy el promotor de NMA, de la cultura, pero son ustedes que son los que comparten esto entre sus familias, ¿no? And so what I would do, my grandma would say, you have to cross your arms. I'm going to put this here for a second. Hopefully it stays. And so, mientras she would tell me something, I had to cross my arms and wait. And by the time she had finished her water, it was quite a bit of time. She would tell me all sorts of things. I'd tell me things I really was honored to hear. But always she left just a little bit. She always left a little bit at the bottom of her glass. And she said, I would have to, after she said, échame la bendición, give me the blessing. And with that, what was left at the bottom of the cup, she always left some at the bottom of the cup to give the blessing. And she gave me, I'd get on my knees and me echaba la bendición. And this is a ritual in many ways in a lot of our families that whether we think about our elders that are here in life or our elders that are on the other side, in other spheres, they're always giving us their blessing in the form of water. And so what I would like to do today, I'm going to sing this Canción de las Acequias to open up, but I'm going to leave the last bit of water here in the center so that we think about that blessing and I leave all of you as, what are the words we're going to hear in that space between giving the water and giving the blessing. And so a lot of times our words are literally a blessing on us, and then we were given an extra special blessing at the end. But I will leave this water here and sing this song that I've sung at a lot of places. And also, it's kind of interesting, this year they finally asked me to record it, and it's been an honor to put it out on the radio. It's actually, I'm not a very good person for promoting myself, but I would like to promote the ACEQUIA. And so if you do have a chance, there's a radio station here in Taos, KX17. Call up and say, I'm from ACEQUIA, soy de ACEQUIA de Atalaya, soy de ACEQUIA de cualquier ACEQUIA, and say your name. And say, we want to hear Canción de las Acequias because we're going to be doing our cleaning, we're going to work. And that's what this song is about. Ya viene amaneciendo, yo sigo trabajando para mantener lo que yo quiero tanto. Ya viene amaneciendo, yo sigo trabajando para mantener lo que yo quiero tanto. What I like to do during this song is to hear the names of all the acequias that are out there. What acequias are here?
San Antonio.
San Antonio presente.
La madre.
Acequia Madre presente.
Atalaya.
Acequia Atalaya presente.
Acequia del Monte.
Acequia del Monte presente.
Rebalse. Rebalse.
Acequia del Rebalse presente.
Acequia Madre del Sur.
Acequia Madre del Sur presente. Ya vamos a la acequia. A la acequia van todos. Agarra ya la pala para limpiar el bordo. Agarra ya la pala para limpiar el bordo. Limpiaremos la acequia para traer el agua en la primavera. El agua es vida. En la primavera el agua es vida. Preparemos el jardín, las semillas sembramos de frijol, maíz y chile y luego las regamos. De frijol, maíz y chile y luego las regamos. Ahí veo el mayordomo bajando de esa loma. Brinca esta acequia y echan a maroma. Brinca esta acequia y echan a maroma. Llegó el otoño, la siembra pepenamos y damos las gracias por todo lo del campo. Y damos las gracias por todo lo del campo. Abrían las estrellas sobre esa nieve fría. Todita el agua que caiga, todita sea bendita. Todita el agua que caiga, todita sea bendita. Todita el agua que caiga, todita sea bendita. ¡Que vivan las acequias! Rio Hondo también, quería
Gracias.
So, did everyone enjoy that?
Yeah.
Beautiful. Now, doesn't that actually really display in song what we're all about as people, right? It goes way back. The acequias that we use today, our antepasados, our grandparents, our parents, folks that have long gone, walked the same acequia, did the same chores, argued over the same issues, and they came together to work on them, didn't they? And so I think that's more than anything why we're here and why we care. That being said, I would ask us all to hold a moment of silence to recognize all of those that have gone before us, that are no longer here. Basically, the herencia, what we inherited from them, so this really acknowledges that in our past. And so if you would, please let's observe a moment of silence. Thank you, everyone, and thanks to those that have paved the way. So, we're here to have a conversation about the settlement, and really about our distillation of what's in. It's 108 pages of a document that was written by attorneys, you can tell, because it's very difficult to understand. And if you go to an attorney and you ask them a question about the settlement, they refer you back to a section in there. So that's how difficult it is. But what we've attempted to do is kind of boil that down so that we ourselves can understand it. And as we explain what's in it, hopefully you can understand what's in there. Remember, it's 108 pages, not much, enough to put you to sleep if you attempt to read it. But then the appendices, the maps, the well log information, everything else that goes with that settlement is probably over a foot thick. And so all the supporting documents that are not in the settlement itself that you can refer to, about a foot of that. And what I would like to do is challenge everyone here to read the settlement, attempt to try to understand it. It's online at the TVAA website. It's also online, Taos County website, and Town of Taos. And the appendices too. They're all there. Now, before I start, let me try to explain something that's kind of rudimentary to the whole settlement. And that's the whole system of water rights in New Mexico. Prior to 1908, land and water could not be separated. In our ancestors' past, you would not survive if that was the case. If you didn't have the water that you used to grow your crops, your animals, everything else, you did not survive. And so it was inseparable. After a little thing called, I think it was Manifest Destiny, where someone decided they would come and take over the New Mexico territories, which at the time were held by Mexico. And it was later in 1908 that the Territorial Water Code was established. And in that water code, all of a sudden, something foreign to our ancestors was that water was like property. It was something that could be sold, exchanged. All of a sudden it was removed from its original location.
Illegal.
The Hondo said.
Illegal. Because under Spanish law, custom, and usage, you cannot remove those laws. That's only Anglo law. So you got to go back to the Treaty of Cession and the Law of Nations, what it is. And does the Treaty of Guadalupe protect us?
It's supposed to.
It doesn't.
Does it?
It doesn't.
So
it was modified.
After 1908, right, it changed. All of a sudden we have a new law that says the two are separable. Okay, and that's the system that we operate under today.
Well, it's got to change.
Again, if you want to start a group to try to change the statute, let's work on that.
Yeah.
But here, as an example, I have, this is our ACEQUIA, right? Okay, it has water.
Yeah, but you can't drink out of it anymore because of the ski belly. We used to drink out of the ditch when we were kids.
Okay, so that's a problem for us, of course. But going back to trying to understand, how does it work? How do water rights work? So that we all have a clear sort of foundation so that we can continue to have discussion about water rights, but we're all coming from the same place, right? Okay, so there's our ACEQUIA. After settlement in the Taos Valley, there were certain rights that were given to, say, Town of Taos. They had rights to pump water at a given amount that before the settlement, it was not capped. It was based on as much water as they could move into that system through transfers, or what we call offsets. So here's town of Taos, right? So they have that. They're pumping that much water. They can serve so many customers. What happens if they need more? Well, under our present laws, guess where it comes from? There's an offset of water rights from someone that owns water rights. The water rights owning parties in the Taos Valley are Taos Pueblo, the town of Taos, El Prado Mutual Water and Sanitation District, and the 12 Mutual Domestic Water Consumers Association, like the one that's here in Arroyo Hondo. And that's it. The system is fully appropriated. There isn't any more water than the water held by those parties. So if the system, it means by saying fully appropriated, you can't transfer any more into it. Where does it come from? It comes from exchanges between the parties, like I showed you. That was just from an ACEQUIA, because the ACEQUIAs were the only parties, and that it's not with the ACEQUIA commissions themselves, but individuals on the ACEQUIA that are willing to sell water rights to other users.
Going back, that's a violation. That is a violation.
Well, it is now, because now you have to go to the ACEQUIA commission and seek approval for any water rights transfer. I'll talk about the Vida settlement and what it did about that particular subject. So,
He made a ton of money, let's put it that way.
well, some people did. So,
He did.
and remember, it's Vida and Arellano. Arellano is the part of the settlement where it was incorporated, Arroyo Hondo was incorporated into the rest of that settlement.
But we had no say in that.
Well, you are part of the settlement. And whether or not there was any say in it, you have to, I can show you who of our antepasados signed on to the agreement. So the attempt was back then, right, Alfred, is to bring all 55 ACEQUIAs to the table to negotiate on the behalf and for the betterment of the ACEQUIAs. What the ACEQUIAs got in that negotiation is, number one, the Pueblo agreed that they would not call priority. In other words, that they would not enforce their Aboriginal priority over the water in Taos Valley. That's called forbearance. They said, we will forbear our priority, but we are all the same. Go ahead.
So, you're talking about Aboriginal rights, right? The only Aboriginal rights that the Pueblo have is from the Rio Grande and the Rio Chama. How can they have Aboriginal rights from the ACEQUIAs, because they didn't build them?
Well, they have Aboriginal rights on the Rio Pueblo and the Rio Lucero because they were settled there before anyone else got here. That's what it's based on.
That's not true. The family's been here for over 300 years.
Well, the Pueblo will argue that they've been here since time began.
Yeah.
So, and it would be difficult to, it's difficult to have a conversation like that, but the bottom line is they said, you know what? As long as you guys out here, you ACEQUIAs, as long as you continue to irrigate, as long as you continue to farm, as long as you continue all those sorts of things, we will forbear any priority. That meant that the Pueblo was saying, even though we were here first, we're not going to fight over that water because we're all on the same page. We're all the same as far as, in fact, they said, no more Aboriginal, we're the same as you are. Okay, so that was one thing that was huge in the settlement. A great advantage to all the ACEQUIAs. The other thing that was settled for in the settlement was, there was an agreement that people supplying water, like El Prado, the town of Taos, the mutual domestics, that they would not seek water rights to transfer from the acequias. They said, we will not do that except as a last resort. But here's the rest of that story. You know this pumping that's going on right here? Can we all agree that the surface water and groundwater is connected? Yes? Yeah? Well, as you pump and you serve many customers, not only are you using your water rights, but guess what? The river that used to flow over here to the acequia, it's doing this. It's going down. So how they dealt with that, how would you deal with it today? You can stop any sort of growth, right? No more, close the gate, no more development, no more wells, no more people. That's one way to do it, right? That would stop it. What else can you do?
Encourage,
Conserve. Go ahead.
encourage agriculture, because as you flood a field,
Well,
it'll sink in.
again, if your supply is diminished, you're working with a diminished amount, right? So,
Go back to Spanish law.
go back to the beginning.
Yeah.
Take the water off the top.
So that's important. I think that would be a solution to the problem that we have today, which is irrigated agriculture is leaving irrigation for houses and other things, right?
Right.
But
It's not leaving.
how they decided to do
People are just not
this,
willing to do the work to actually flood irrigate. And it takes time, it takes effort. Trust me, I irrigate 60 acres,
Yeah.
so it takes effort and fuel and a ton of other things
It takes-
that kids aren't willing to do.
it takes work, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And don't we all feel it too? I mean, when I'm done, I sleep really well. So how they dealt with it in the settlement was, okay, you get to pump there and you're having an impact, but you have to make up for that impact from here.
Sharing.
Where is that?
New water.
The Rio Grande. That's what they decided in the settlement, is to move all pumping, domestic pumping, to the Rio Grande. And for those that are having impact, the one thing that everybody wants to talk about is the wells, the mitigation wells. Well, guess what those wells are supposed to be tied to? The Rio Grande. And so this depletion that is occurring here is supposed to be offset by taking that water and putting it into those, discharging it into the streams that are being affected. That's what it says.
Right.
Now, is that sustainable?
No,
I don't know.
no, it's not.
There's been, we don't have, all of us don't have enough information to know what's the extent of groundwater that we have here today, but they also thought about that in the settlement. So they developed a settlement model, which is a model that, what I did just there physically, that does it there mathematically, it figures out the amount of the impact, who's causing the impact, and how much that offset has to be from those deep wells. And this water, guess what? The one in the Rio Grande has to be offset too. So where do you think this comes from? Remember, the system is fully appropriated. All water rights are spoken for. So where does the water that I just took from here to put into our acequias from the Rio Grande, where's that coming from?
But there's a problem with it. It comes from Colorado to New Mexico and goes to Texas.
Well,
and
that part of it is in the interstate compact, which factors in, but
there's a problem with that contract, because instead of it being a percentage, it's gallons. You know, they're not saying you get a percentage, we get a percentage, Texas gets a percentage. It's done by gallons. And so Texas ends up with more than they should. They keep taking our
They would
water.
argue they get less. So, anyway, hold that thought. So, remember that has to be offset as well. That comes from, remember the mutual domestics got water rights from
Chevron Mine?
Chevron Mining. Chevron Mining's up here, and they're allowing, that water that they used to pump now is allowed to flow down the Red River, down the Rio Grande. So that's how they make the connection between the Rio Grande from up there all the way down to here. Where's the other place that could possibly, okay, there was that. Another potential source of offsets to the Rio Grande, and that's way downstream here, San Juan Chama. Remember that project? Well, that project is allowed to flow in exchange for water being taken out here. It's a trade. They take San Juan Chama water that's right here, and they say, okay, that amount can flow, but we'll take our amount here.
Okay, but the Rio Hondo provides water to everybody that's in this meeting, which flows into the Rio Grande, which we cannot irrigate from. Most everybody here, I'm pretty sure, flood irrigates, so they know what it is. And if there's no water in the river, because they're allocating it to Texas, that's why we want to be here in the meeting.
Well, that water that's flowing, that serves your acequias, the threat is, of course there's a threat outside of here, but the threat is not using that water. Not irrigating, not participating in the acequia, not paying your dues, developing property that it was irrigated, developing it for houses or other things. That is the threat. Because, let's get to footprints. Every house that's developed on a piece of land that was irrigated is a footprint that could potentially be lost. And I'll talk more about that because we've got a project, hopefully, to help ameliorate, to help lessen that as an issue. But those footprints are considered an abandoned right because it is something that has been, with intent, put water to a different use, which is no use. It's a house.
The other question, between all these measurement points, is whatever's in place, is it there to capture those measurements and move that water accordingly? I just don't know, pardon my ignorance, if they're all interconnected and they're already there, but it just seems like all of these focal points for movement and measurement seem like they would be a recipe for a whole bunch of other problems.
There's gauging. There's gauging that's associated with San Juan Chama. San Juan Chama is a cross-continental diversion project that actually pumped water up and over into the Rio Chama Basin. The Rio Grande has gauges at the state line, has gauges at Red River. Our acequias, they're not gauged, are they?
Yeah, they are.
Ours aren't in ranchos.
Ours are here, because we have.
Ours aren't
gauges
gauged,
on
so.
all the-
Yeah, all the acequias, the Rio Hondo are gauged.
Okay.
Yeah, we have head.
So that's another measurement that's important to this puzzle. The other part of it is groundwater measurement, and the state is supposed to, the Office of the State Engineer, as part of their contribution to that model, is supposed to be looking at deep wells that were drilled back during the settlement negotiation days to determine water depth, whether or not they're receding or grading, water quality, all those sorts of things. That's what the state engineer is supposed to be doing. Relax.
luck on that one.
Because that's probably,
Just one guy?
well, I won't cast aspersions on the office of the state engineer. I hope they're doing it, and we're having discussions with them about that specifically. We're also on the TVA board is trying to become educated about that settlement model, so we know what's going into it, how are they updating it, exactly what's the math behind all of this, and where's the information coming from. There's another piece of this that's missing, if you haven't guessed, and that's that the community I grew in is very different today than it was. How old am I, 68? There was hardly a car that would go down our road in Ranchitos. Now it's constant. And I look across at all our fields and I see lots of houses. We're not sure if that's being captured, because how many of you have a domestic well that is not metered? Tell the truth.
More domestic wells that are 700 feet deep.
So
you know what that costs.
we have lots of wells that are not being metered. That in and of itself might be a problem if that water is going someplace else. In other words, if you have a system, most of us have septic systems with a leach field. And so you're pumping water, you're using some of it, a great deal of it is going back into that system. And then theoretically it's going into groundwater, being treated by soil bacteria and going back into the water kind of where it came from with some loss. We don't know how much that is, the loss is, but as houses sort of saturate the valley, it could become significant, and it could become significant in certain places. And it is more significant when it goes into a water treatment facility, because the town of Taos water treatment facility is, where is it?
Los Colonias.
It's down at in Los Cordobas, downstream of the whole system. It's all gravity fed, and when they treat that water, some of it comes back to a golf course there, but where does the majority of it go?
To the Rio Grande.
It goes out of the valley, doesn't it? So that could be a significant net loss to us up here. So
I was thinking of an example. In Des Montes, they were going to build 3 separate, what do you call it, housing projects. And one of the housing projects was going to allow swimming pools to be put in every single place. And Archuleta's really got us all together and fought that. I live here in Hondo, but we got involved too, because that's ridiculous to allow a project, and it's all about money. It's not about people or the culture or the livelihood of families.
But isn't this LA?
And that's true, because we fought it. We had to have meeting after meeting with the engineers just to take away all the pools, because they had a pool for each one of the homes proposed to be built.
That's a loss. Yes, Mr. President.
Yeah, for us in the Rio Hondo, the point of contention is that the Ski Valley did not participate in this, in the settlement. So they have open-ended use of water, and they're trying to build a 5 million gallon water tank at the top of the hill. And anyhow, how did the Ski Valley escape this participation of water as a commodity?
Well, let me, we posed the attorney from the Office of the State Engineer. I don't remember if you're in that meeting, Sylvia or Andy, where we talked about what about people that aren't signatory to the settlement? Because the settlement brought to us certain benefits, right? But there are people that are outside of the settlement. how does that interact with them? Well, the long and the short of it is that state water law, as it exists today, applies to them, and none of the benefits in this apply to them either. And so this idea of priority, there are priorities. And that is typically, historically, how, remember, you have to have the water right that you put to a beneficial use. That beneficial use was established on a certain date, and there's a volume associated with that use. All of us on the ACEQUIA, remember, under the settlement, there's none of that. We're all the same. But parties outside of that settlement have an appropriated amount that has a date, it has prescribed uses and prescribed volumes. And how they're dealt with is, as used to be historically, right, Alfred, is like you took them to court.
Yes.
Yeah, if there was an issue over we're not getting our share of the water, then you go back to establishing, well, what are your dates? And what are your dates? And at what time and for what purpose and what volumes? Now, it becomes pretty interesting when they're all jumbled together, but you have to be able to tease those apart for different points of extraction.
So if they can spend $5 million on a hotel,
hang on, okay.
They can spend $5 million on a hotel, why would they not drill a well up there?
How much water rights does Hermes Lake have?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know why they wouldn't drill a well, and
Why
potentially maybe because there isn't any water.
Why take it out of the?
Because they're not allowed to. The only person who can drill a well in the village in Taos Valley is the village.
Well, they don't. No, that's not true. If you're a private property owner, you can drill a well. I just saw four of them drilled down the street from my house.
You can, this is another point of contention in the settlement that is unresolved. Any landowner can go to the office of the state engineer and apply for a permit to drill. And you can get a permit to drill a well, but it's a permit, it's an authorization to do something. And as of anything drilled after 2006 in the settlement, it says that any well before that time is grandfathered in. Any well after that time has the potential of being protested. So it could be that any wells nearer than 2006 may have to be metered and volumes checked, and basically having to provide input to that settlement model that we're talking about.
So, how many feet of water does the Ski Valley possess?
That I don't know.
You don't know? Yeah. Because if they have so much and they're using more than they're supposed to, then
that's a problem.
That's a problem. Plus, if they're storing water in those tanks, that's another problem. That's wastewater.
Again, our issue should be, that's the challenge. And I think there has to be more discussion. It's the same way the ACEQUIA has dealt with it in the past, was you sit down at the table, between the ACEQUIAs, remember when there wasn't enough water, you would go and what was the term? Auxilio was the, we used to work it out with each other. But that's where there was cooperation that was built, but it had nothing to do with dates, the priority dates, and all those other things that I explained. That's a different process. You go to court, you do discovery, all that comes out, and the decision is eventually made.
Yeah, I just want to add on the Ski Valley piece, any of those large developments, they're going to put those on a meter. like anything that's up in the ski valley itself, any like large developments, we're gonna know how much water they're gonna be using. It's gonna be metered and they're gonna be charged for it. So it's not like an empty hole. But if you're a private residence, if you're, like, say where I am in Amazette, there's no like water service there. So you gotta drill a well. You don't have a choice. It's the only way you're gonna get water.
Here first, Cliff, and then I'll get to things.
Just, again, very new to this, but my concern is, it just appears to me that this facilitated agreement kind of took away from, and I'm sorry that Taos Pueblo did what they did, because I think when you change the whole dynamic of how water coming to agreements was done, it seems like there are a lot of people that didn't sign in, but everyone else now is on the hook for a facilitated agreement that they weren't a part
You know,
of.
the settlement, how I describe that in my own terms as I talk to my folks or siblings, is we inherited. I mean, we were not we weren't part of it at the time, but right, Alfredo, there's a lot of folks that were engaged off and on, and some of those people are gone, but remember that the beginning, and so that I look to folks with the board on TVAA because they know all this stuff too. And Sylvia is really eloquent and is very helpful in us understanding sort of the beginnings of this, you know, that its history was rooted in an adjudication suit, you know, to establish who owns what. I mean, it was not something that people could avoid. Because in that adjudication, it was the Office of the State Engineer, Reynolds, versus Aveta, versus Arellano, and every other water right holder underneath them. There was no choice but for us to band together to negotiate terms on our behalf because you were not given the opportunity to sit it out.
Well, I guess if you look at a model like what happened in Washington State, the very people that have relied on, historically on water, on Aboriginal water, have been left out. All the water is now going to very large, deep-pocketed corporate interests. And so that's my concern for this, is once you break the model, that's all they need, because that gives them the wherewithal and the legalese and the attorneys, water attorneys, to come in, and suddenly, who here can afford to be pocketed attorneys? Suddenly, they're all negotiating your facilitated agreement, and you are not at the table.
Well, at the time, members of TVAA were at the table with the Pueblo, with the town, with El Prado.
Just, I'm saying, go research yourself.
So
Watch
this
what
is
happened
what-
in Washington State.
Sam, that's kind of, you know, ACEQUIAs don't hold the water rights. They mostly manage.
Manage it.
The owners of the water rights are the individual landowners.
That's
each
right.
one of you. And each one of you had a right to represent yourself in that adjudication suit. And there were some pro se parties, I can't remember how many, but it dwindled, it was whittled down to about five of us. And we stayed with it to the very end, representing our own individual rights, because that's all that, you know, that's all that was left. Nobody can represent your right better than yourself if you do the research and if you follow the law. And we were filing, I was filing stuff in court for the longest time against the lawyers of Taos Pueblo, the federal government, the ACEQUIAs, the mutual domestics, you know, the water and sanitation districts. And you take it as far as you can, and you try to introduce new evidence, you know, and there's a pushback. You know, you've got these big forces against you that push you back and belittle you, actually, and you have nowhere to go but, you know, no, you're just out of the picture, period.
We're lucky that you're here, because like, you know, the folks that were at the table originally, it's fewer and fewer and fewer.
See, the problem is that we, the taxpayer money, people, we, they built this agency like the OSC without taxpayer money, but then they use that taxpayer money against us. You know, it's a conflict right there.
Doesn't seem right, but that's how all the agencies operate.
Right.
Cliff?
Well, with regard to that $5 million gallon tank at the Ski Valley, it's in amongst the other developments, as you all know, are awaiting a decision by the Forest Service. It's taken them some time, but at some point there's going to be a decision. And if it goes against us, if they approve these things that have impact on the watershed, the procedure is that individuals or groups can protest that decision, and the Forest Service will have to review it. But the next step, which is probably inevitable, is that we'd have to get organized to go to court and to ask for or demand environmental impact statement, which would study the impacts. And even though the prospects of long-term success with that, it is a necessary thing that would have to happen, given that development in the Ski Valley has been a four-season thing. And it's no longer a question, they write this off as, well, we're using the majority of that water to make snow, and that contributes in some way to the flow in the river. That's no longer the case because of the resort development up there. With regard to the notice of what's happening, because you are part of the village of Taos Ski Valley, you probably get notice of developments that are happening there, but we don't.
Well, I wouldn't say, any of you read the article in the paper, I was severely underinformed, and I'm just going to say as a caution to this whole community, don't be afraid to spend a little bit of coin on demanding environmental studies. Because, even with the village, God bless some of the good people there, and some of them aren't, they will underinform people, and they're not perfect. So do your due diligence, don't let it slip, because to your point, I think you make a valid one.
Democracy is a lot of work. Yeah. And, maintaining our values in our communities is going to be a perpetual struggle up against, as you say, the power and the wealth of our wealth that is in government. But, we know this is true. It's never been not so.
Yeah. Okay, so there was an agenda, and I've been moving along on that. So the next thing to talk about is a project that TVAA received grant funding to begin, and it is to look at this idea of the footprints. It's a pilot project, something that's scalable, which means it can move from where we're looking at it. We're hiring basically an hydrogeologic engineering firm to identify, to perform a hydrographic survey. There was a survey done back in 1969 that the state did, where they identified by survey, by owner, it identified how much water they had, how much water they could use, what crops they were growing, who the owners were of these large agricultural tracts in those days, 1969. They did it up here too. I don't know if you all have a copy of that survey, but the state engineer has that. So what we're looking at is one map unit within the hydrographic survey in the Ranchos area, and we're asking him to identify these footprints, because the footprints in the settlement, it says that the settling parties all agreed that they would not protest footprint transfers for the use of mutual domestics or water consumers associations up to 0.36 acre feet per footprint. So all the parties in the settlement said we're not going to protest any transfers of these footprints to serve a mutual domestic. Now, the mutual domestics have a difficult time doing it themselves because you have to do a hydrographic survey, you perform a survey, you have to identify the chain of title for that parcel to assure that the water rights are still attached to that piece of land. And so it's easier to go buy 20 acres of farmland because the work takes the same amount to do that transfer as it does to do a 100 by 100 square foot plot of a house. And so at TVAA, we acquired this grant so that we can pilot it to figure out, okay, what's it going to cost us to do that? Because that has to be done across the whole valley, because we don't want the mutual domestics. If we can have a bundled source that would have been abandoned anyway, in other words, lost to us, if we can compile those and sell them to the mutual domestic, then in turn get money back to the parciantes whose water rights are basically going to be lost. And so that's the whole idea behind this footprint project. We've got to pilot it first. We've got to take it to the state engineer to see if he'll approve transfers like that, because they will not commit in advance, will they? The state engineer will not tell you what they're going to do.
What about like a mobile home? The nature of a mobile home is that it can be moved, so will they have to make some kind of commitment that that is going to stay forever and ever?
Perfect, that's a great question, because a mobile home is mobile. So there is no footprint there.
Right.
The footprints are
So they're roll it out right away, no footprint.
Barns, corrals, anything like that is temporary in nature, is not considered a
Concrete foundation is passable, or?
Yeah, it has to be a foundation, has to be a permanent structure.
With the ski valley having such a large impact on the water usage, and them not being formally a part of this agreement, could that study go into that area as well?
No.
Or more importantly, should it?
No. Again, this study is for us on the ACEQUIAs. It is anyone that's a member of the Taos Valley ACEQUIA Association, any ACEQUIAs that are member ACEQUIAs that are part of this family, eventually we're going to have to do that across the whole valley.
Wouldn't they want to know that though, like how much water usage would be within the framework of that study in order to further impact this data?
We should be able to. I don't know if the ski valley, again, I'm out of my element here, but I don't know if those properties were in a hydrographic survey. I don't know that any of it was ever actually irrigated. I think most of it came from water transfers from downstream, and some of it would have been acquired through maybe mining, just like Molycorp. But even theirs, Molycorp's rights were transferred from downstream, upstream to that facility for that use. So yeah, you're asking me questions there that I don't know.
Fair, thank you.
But I could train the follower.
One of the things that I've thought about, I guess because of my age, but if you look at the amount of young people here, there are not many. Most of us are older. And the young people, how much do they know? And even when they inherit, do they know what their water rights are for the property? I mean, how in the world can we start securing the younger generation, not only by teaching them, but finding out exactly the paperwork for that?
I know. I irrigate. You know my brother, so you know you live right down the road from me.
Go ahead. Number one is we got to teach our children. You know, that really is on all of us to teach them about the water, the rights that they have, and in the end, how all of this stuff works. Because when we're gone, they need to understand how all of this works. But just to add to gentleman's question about the mobile homes is, because it can be moved, it's not a footprint, but those are the sort of areas that you need to water bank, because if you don't water bank it, at some point, the state engineer, when the dust settles here, will come back and they will go after abandoned water rights. And unless you water bank it, it's abandoned. And that's true of anything we don't irrigate. Put it in the water bank. Now, NMAA, and here's a plug for them, I would encourage every ACEQUIA to become a member of NMAA. I think the annual dues are $50, $60?
I can send around this membership list.
Yeah, and so so a couple of things. Number one is they provide us with technical support. They, they provide templates to help you update your bylaws to New Mexico law. The second thing is, and my ACEQUIA is very much grateful, we had a water transfer, and in which had we done it without legal support, we would have been in deep trouble. And so they provided us a lawyer to get it done according to the law so that we didn't get ourselves into a bad situation. And the third thing is, we're all little voices, our individual ACEQUIAs, but they represent several hundred ACEQUIAs, and they're our advocate in Santa Fe. And they've done a wonderful job. Yes.
I want to be able to speak to a couple of points. Those are excellent points for the woman here. I think those are critical. You said that. That's one of our challenges is to how do we keep this going forward? It's a perpetual challenge. It's a perpetual opportunity. And so some of the things that I want to remind folks of that maybe are new to this, or maybe we forget, right? We forget. The 1969 hydrographic survey, that's one of the ways that we know what was recorded in some properties, right? And so there's at least a starting point for parts of the valley, and then we come to the new and we say, this pilot program will show what is now in footprint. To Alfred's point, I think being able to protect even things that may appear to be lost, that those footprints, I just want to take a moment and I want to give all my gratefulness to Jeff Bryce, who really lobbied at the Taos Valley ACEQUIA Association for the ability for us to even be speaking about water banking today. And so we need to be able to, number one, identify for the parciante, for the end user. There's a separation here. The end user, what can we put into a water bank? That in itself replenishes the ACEQUIA. That in itself replenishes the Taos Valley ACEQUIA Association. We were with Paula and those folks 20 years ago when they were coming to communities, when they were putting together these visiting forums to create what is now being facilitated through the New Mexico legislature. And I think one of the things to bring it full circle is to make certain that we're involved, not just to seek the support and the help that they can and are willing and are capable of giving us, but to hold them accountable and to hold all of our agencies accountable. Because the last thing we need is to be giving 20 years of our lives to support and contribute, and then those same agencies of rural northern New Mexico se voltean y nos hacen un daño. So we need to be careful to work together and at the same time find ways that we safeguard that a parciante isn't then thrown under a bus and you're no longer important, right? And so working together, but at the same time honoring and respecting what each of those individuals gave.
Yeah. No, that's true. And thanks for mentioning that. Of course, by name, there were several people that were engaged and involved. And we encourage that continued involvement. Our annual meeting is March 9th. It starts at 11 o'clock at the Ag Center in Taos. please come to that. You might get nominated for something.
Well, sorry, we have our annual meeting here too, March 9th.
Have to drink some ACEQUIA water.
To reinforce what Andy, Robert here was saying about the services that MAA brings, your bylaws are your first line of defense. A strong set of bylaws that's current speaks to a lot of this new water transfers that are coming for the cannabis industry. It also speaks strongly on how to update the water banking and how it's not as burdensome on the parciante as it used to be. So your bylaws being current are super important. It also puts you in a position to be able to advocate for state funding, and you now meet the tier level of the state auditor to be able to advocate for monies, grants, legislative appropriations directly to your ACEQUIAs. So what can we do individually? Make sure you have a copy of your bylaws. As commissioners, make sure the bylaws are current and in full force. And bringing the kids in. To your point also, I have grandchildren in Rio Rancho, and they make it a point to get down here for the limpia, and that's their connection. And it's amazing. It's like planting a seed. They're there for that one day or 2 days for the weekend, but then they talk about it all year round. And they know that when they're walking on the ACEQUIA, they're walking on footsteps of their grandfather, their great-grandfather, and et cetera, and et cetera, and et cetera. When I tell them that our priority date is 1760, and they start figuring out the math, I told them that's how many years people have been doing this. Those are all opportunities to plant more seeds to the young kids. Bring them in. Even if you don't think that they're paying attention or they'd rather be on their devices or whatever, it actually sinks in. That seed gets planted. So bring the kids in, get your bylaws up to speed, and have a copy of them. And even folks that don't have water rights, aren't a parciante, but if the ditch runs through their land, they should have a copy of those bylaws, because there's things in those bylaws that apply to them also, and how and it helps us protect the ACEQUIAs, and a lot of people are very interested in doing that, even though they may not have water rights to irrigate themselves.
So there were 2 points that were made there that were really critical, and actually fits with the agenda, and that's this whole idea of water banking. There's a new template, and we'll ask Dabi to give us a name or a number, someone that we can refer to. But the new water banking template allows an ACEQUIA to water bank on any property that has 2 years of non-use automatically, as long as they're passed by your commission, well, your parciantes in the commission. So you can water bank those automatically. There's a system for keeping that updated. Any water that is banked through that process is used by the other parciantes on the ACEQUIA. So please, there's a handout, right, Judy? There's a handout on water banking. Take one of those. If you're a commissioner, make sure you take one of those and look at your bylaws to assure that you can do that. If yours doesn't allow it, all it takes is the annual meeting and a vote, and you'll be up and running. The other thing is this whole idea of water transfers. There's a whole public process that requires notification, it requires posting, and you have to publish in a newspaper, local circulation, all these sorts of things. Well, guess who pays for all that? The commission, you as parciantes. All that money that is spent on publishing notices and making copies and sending notices to your parciantes and renting a meeting room, however you do it, it comes out of your bank. And so look at that. What we've done on our acequia down in Ranchos is that our bylaws state that any applicant wishing to transfer must pay all costs associated with the transfer. And now that I've given you that sort of commercial advertisement done.
Thank you, Mr. George. I just wanted to follow up with the two comments that we been mentioning earlier about NMA. We do various projects that we were involved with, not only influencing policy at the legislature. We also do work with infrastructure. So if any of the ACEQUIAs are in need of assistance in terms of doing infrastructure plans, and we will guide them on the road to do that with a team that does that. We also, as Mr. Arroyo, Mr. Arroyo mentioned, is bylaws. If you're doing an infrastructure project, the Interstate Street Commission is only accepting projects that have bylaws that have been updated in the last 15 years. And so what's really important also in terms of that, you have to have your EID that matches your name, the name of your ACEQUIA that matches, the name on your bank account and your bylaws. And so that's something that stops a lot of people from moving their projects ahead. Oftentimes, a commission that doesn't have a solid set of bylaws, if a water transfer comes up and you do not have the water transfer language in your bylaws, a person just needs to go to the state office of state engineer and make the transfer. You basically bypass your community's authority to make that decision. And so in terms of really investing your community's power within your ACEQUIA and your commission and your community, because a lot of times what happens at these transfer hearings is that the community gets to state what sort of detriment a proposed water transfer can have on a community. And so, and oftentimes, it's really important that even if some ACEQUIAs have the bylaw, sometimes they take a laissez-faire effect of, oh, we're going to approve this transfer, and now go through the process. If in the future, a particular water transfer is detrimental, it's going to be detrimental to your community, happens, and then you've not been following your protocol and your bylaws, it opens up your community to a precedent that you're not following your bylaws, and so it's really important. Even in the most minuscule of transfers, if it's even small transfer, make sure you go through the process that is spelled out in your bylaws, because it's so important to make those sorts of things transparent. It's so important to show the community that how the decision process is being made. I have here, because someone asked a little while ago, how do you become a member of NMAA? And so for a regional association, it's $100, but if you want to just be a parciante, if you're a parciante, it's a $25 fee. And then if you're an ACEQUIA, it's a $50 fee. And I'll send this around. If you're already a member, just go ahead and pass it along. I don't think I have enough for everybody, but I'll take them. And also here's a sign-up sheet if you want to be on our mailing list. And there's a couple cards, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you, Mr. George, for your time.
Thank you.
I also have some, I can talk about one more thing. We recently came off our legislative session, and so one of the things that we're working towards, is infrastructure capital outlay funding, and there was, I can probably do a brief later on, but I don't want to when it's part of your agenda.
Sure. Yes, Carlos.
One more thing I wanted to point out, and also it kind of dovetails into getting the kids involved. So that's at that level. But every one of us here is a voter, and altogether we have some political clout. So if you're interested in the health of your watershed, in the health of the water in the valley here, talk to your commissioners, talk to your elected officials, make sure they're on board with you, make sure that they know that you're interested in this, and see what their agenda is, whether they support you or not, support the water. So they need to know that it's an important issue across Taos Valley. That's another piece that needs to be, that comes into play with you, not only bringing the kids in, but also making sure that we don't get bamboozled at the state level or at the federal level.
Mr. Arroyo, one quick.
Yes.
And I echo that is also one of the other projects that we have with NMAA is our education outreach. We also have a youth leadership cohort that we meet every year since the pandemic. But in addition to that, we have an education team that goes out into the schools to do presentations about acequias. And there's currently a legislative project that's called the ACEQUIA and Land Grant Education Fund. And there currently various schools can participate in their own developing curriculums for their classrooms. And so also if you'd like to...
Vida, how are we going to draw these kids to participate? And we got to find a solution, you know what I mean? It's, you're caught up in I don't know how to explain it, you know what I mean? It's like,
Steady, we have to teach
the thing is,
that's it. Show them the ways that we used to grow up as, how we used to work, what we used to do.
yeah, but there's got to be a program. Like you have this Catholic programs, you have this Protestant story, whatever down the line. No, we gotta connect those kids to our culture. We gotta go to the legislation and do a camp, do something. We have to do something because they're not following us. They're not following us.
Well, maybe we get up in the schools, because like my kids, they went to Roots and Wings and they learned more about our culture than they ever did the whole time they were in like the public school system.
See, I think we have to talk to, sorry, go ahead, please.
Well, I think before I move, I have to recognize you, Judy. She was taking care of everything while we were setting up in here. Judy Torres is our executive director. She does everything.
Yes.
This organization. And of course, Angela, would like to recognize that you're here. Thank you for coming. Carlos, the folks that have been at this for a long time are scattered around the room, and we should all recognize you because of everything that you've done. It's like Carlos said, planted the seed, and here we are. We may be pretty ugly, but here we are.
Well, I was going to mention, just to venture that question, is Mr. George, is that the answer is in every single one of us.
Right.
And so I think no one has a particular one answer.
I think we have to take these to the public schools and and start teaching them since grade 1, because ya los que pasaron ya no, it's over. You got to start them from the beginning.
Talk to your school board members, tell them to bring the FAA back into the schools and FHA and
But that's why we have to have the
Yeah,
school because
Judy,
we have, go ahead, Judy.
We've tried to go through the Taos municipal schools. They make it so hard for us to get into them. We're trying to bring back FFA. Cuesta has FFA. Their school system invited us to go over there to teach the kids about acequias and our culture and our traditions. Penasco does a very good job at teaching all of the kids this. There's programs that are there, but the Taos municipal school system just blocks us and doesn't want to bring it. So if you have kids in school, go to the school board. Tell them that this is something we want in our school system. The Vista Grande has a great program that has agriculture built into it, but they're not part of the same system. So it's the public schools that we really need to push them to let us come in. We have wonderful traditions, land grants, acequias, everything here in our valley. And it's just a shame that our school system is so broken that they don't allow us to go in there.
See, those are
Programs like
political
FFA
positions,
is
so you can
perfect.
influence them by your vote.
We have a question here.
This is just specific, so I'm not a ACEQUIA member, I'm not a Parciante. I learned all of this on the fly. I've been working with Leandro Ortiz for years now, but I have a number of you here in the room. If anybody has knowledge of Lobo Creek where it flows into your Rio Hondo ACEQUIA system, if you can get in contact with Judy or Leandro and let us know, because we've been battling the OSC for years. Lobo Creek's been cut off from the Rio Hondo. This is part of your watershed. And if you set precedent with Lobo Creek getting cut off because they're wasting the water, they're cutting it off year-round, they're using it illegally for domestic use, don't think that same thing's not going to happen with the Taos Ski Valley. And this is in a small creek compared to the Taos Ski Valley. It's going to set precedent. And we're not getting help from the OSC. So they're saying, no, Lobo Creek's not going to reach the Rio Hondo anymore. It will if it's allowed to flow, but it's not being allowed to flow.
But
So anyone has historical evidence?
There's a lot of piping up there, if you actually walk through the mountains, that diverts the water to Deer Mesa and all that area.
Well, I'm
So
talking about
it-
the part that normally had gone through my property that my dad bought like a
Yeah,
long
well,
time ago.
it's
That's
supposed
not
to,
piping.
it's supposed to flow through there, but they have like
Yeah.
literally metals.
They've added a lot, they've added a lot recently after Hawk died, it was the Hawk ditch, and Hawk passed away, and a lot of stuff's happened over the last decade without my knowledge for a long time, and without your knowledge. And that's not just Lobo Creek, Canino Creek, and Taos Ski Valley, they're not part of your beta settlement. And yet, OSC's like, hands off, they know this stuff's not per adjudication, and it's setting a real dangerous precedent for your watershed. I don't have water rights, I enjoy Lobo Creek going through my property.
Trust me, I grew up here.
Yeah, and my fir trees are dying, all of them along that place. And if anybody or your grandparents or parents know where that is and can give an affidavit that Lobo Creek flowed into it, and anybody has photos of it, because I have photos of it going through my property, and we have photos of it on the north end, but we need it where it's into your watershed, into the Rio Hondo, and really help us. Because if we can battle them on that, that would really help with the Taos Ski Valley problem as well.
Yeah, and because I'm supposed to keep with the agenda, we're in the roundtable discussion on the agenda. We'll stay here as long as you want. So this is our opportunity to have.
The change of ownership.
Oh, yes, sorry. Told you, Judy. Make sure that every irrigated parcel is associated with a subfile number and a name. You should go to the office of the state engineer and make sure that that is current. Do a change of ownership. If it's in your abuelito's name or even before
Right.
that, you should go there.
I got you on that. So the thing is that we have to get somebody, I don't know, the MA helped us on the transfer from owner to owner so we can register at the OSE, the filing, you know what I mean?
Yeah, the ownership, yeah, you need the deeds.
Yeah, you got the deeds, because in my case, the property that was given to my dad, that was the suerte that was given to my grandma, and from my grandma to my dad, and then to my dad to me. So we need, I got the application, but the thing is that if we register it,
Can I volunteer you, Judy? Sorry. Talk to Judy.
No, is it a good or is it a bad?
Yeah, whatever the hesitation is.
Is it a good idea or is it a bad idea?
It's a good idea.
It shows you have ownership of that water right, so it's a good idea to make sure. And the website for the state engineer, you can look up your water right on the website. They have the forms, the applications there. You have to fill them out with a chain of title, and I can assist you with submitting and.
Because we have a lot of placentas that haven't done that, and we need that help so we can do it.
It's a common problem everywhere.
Yes, you know what I mean, and we have to upgrade that.
Most of the time, on property that's been purchased and has gone through the title company, and they've done an abstract, and they're pretty
good on that.
good. It's up to speed.
Yeah.
But on those that, like ours that were inherited or passed down, I guarantee there's a problem.
Yeah, we need to upgrade that.
It's pretty
easy though.
I don't mean to change the topic, but I have an important health issue that I'm concerned about. And when the Ski Valley opened their new sewer system, septic, cleaning the water that comes down, what do you call that?
Wastewater treatment plant.
Wastewater treatment plant, thank you. Within a month, we're on the ACEQUIA Madre del Llano, and in Upper Hondo, there was filament algae that you could walk on water. I took pictures of it and I gave them to Phaedra. And we called the Forest Service, and the Forest Service said that, they don't have anything to do with the ACEQUIAs. And so I tried, the state and things. But filament algae is very dangerous for animals drinking it, for kids playing in it, it's not healthy. And it doesn't mean that it was necessarily their wastewater treatment. It could be that we need to start monitoring things like our septic systems that are individual, because if they're not cleaned out regularly or whatever, it could be going in. But we need to find out what that is, because it continues. And the other issue that I was really concerned about, which is a health issue too, because it's a depletion of water. When you look at, every year I get online and I follow how many packed inches of snow there is up at Ski Valley. Because I was told that you have to have 65 packed inches to make the ACEQUIAs flow for the season. Well, that was before global warming came about, and it evaporates water because the heat is going up. And also, the latest thing, when I looked it up, was only 56 inches, and I think we're through with the snow. So we really need to plan for, a change in heat and environment too, because global warming is a real thing.
Thank you. We're to the end of our program.
One more thing. Just with regard to water quality on the Rio Hondo, the ACEQUIAs, all the ACEQUIAs of the Rio Hondo received $500,000, and we contracted with New Mexico State Water Institute, and they're for the last year have been conducting water testing in a way that hasn't happened before at multiple sites along the river. And in 6 months or so, we'll start to get some preliminary results. And we're funded through the summer of 2025. We're hopeful that we can acquire funding to continue to monitor in a comprehensive way, and to find out what the impacts are that could be or likely to be linked to development, and to find ways to mitigate that. So I wanted people to know that that's happening now.
If I could add to that, with this water quality testing, as New Mexico State University puts the data together, they are intending on having a community meeting for all the Rio Hondo ACEQUIAs at a later date, but we'll let all the commissioners know when that's going to happen. We're probably a ways off, but that will happen.
Related to that question, is that testing going all the way up to the ski valley? I hope you got it is.
All the way to Ski Valley, all the way down
Thank
to
you.
Rio Hondo.
Okay, everyone, Carlos?
Yeah, there's we have like over 20 sites that we are monitoring above the ski valley, at the ski valley, below the water treatment plant, all the way down to the river, all the way down to the Rio Grande. We're also working with another group to do a watershed management plan. And again, that's designed to protect the watershed. We include the watershed, pretty much all the streams that come down that join the Rio Hondo. So working together with the 96, we've been able to do quite a bit. So we're doing quite a lot.
Samson.
Yes.
Along those lines, and what the lady spoke earlier about the Rio, Elbow Creek and how it's being blocked or whatever, that's a tributary to the Rio Hondo. And the first community that it drains into is Arroyo. So for the people that are from Los Montes or Valdez, it doesn't just affect Arroyo Hondo because it feeds water into, so there's, it's depleting the whole system. And the lady that was here, maybe through Leandro or somebody, that they need help from the other ditches as well, not just Arroyo Hondo. Being, like I said, a tributary that feeds the whole system. She already left. I was trying to say that before she left.
Yeah, the thing is, it's not only damaging the aguas, it's damaging the aguas of Vida that are right there by 30 Mills too. Those waters are drying out too. So, we're gonna have to stick together, all of us. That's the simple thing, because when it comes to all of that, if we stick together and we have all the ACEQUIAs and all the pacientes and everything, and we're one vote, guess what? They're gonna listen to us. Because if you see what's happening so to the, I don't know if you read San Agustin Aquifer up in Taos, they want to transfer those waters down. There is Italian company that wants to suck, I think, billions of water from that aquifer, San Agustin. So, but I'm gonna go in April, they're gonna have a meeting up in reserve, so I'll be joining those people up there to see what their strategy is. But like I say, we can't be, ya se acabó. It's done. We're here together. Hey, we all came in different boats. But guess what? We're in one boat now, so we better stick on that boat, because now we're all gonna sink down.
Yeah. Oh, you said.
I have one issue, and it's on watershed health. We in the Cañon area, Rio Fernando area, are part of the Leñero project. I'm the mayordomo for that Leñero project, and that is northern Mexico wide. There's Peñasco, there's some happening here in San Cristobal. It's a win-win situation for all the communities. What we do is we get so many acres, we thin them out, we can use the wood, we can sell it, we can burn it, do whatever we want with it, as long as we clean up the watershed. Also, there's also a collaborative called the Rio Fernando de Taos Collaborative. Myself and Judy are members of that. And that's helped our watershed out tremendously by helping out our wetlands, bringing our wetlands back. And that's what we're doing. So if you can help your watershed out, by all means do. Take on these projects, because the Forest Service is funding them, which is a great thing. A lot of people don't trust the Forest Service,
But you gotta be careful too, how much you take.
well, it's part of the county too.
Yeah, what I mean is, those, if you take out too much trees, guess what?
Yeah. What we're doing is, we go in with the Forest Service, we look at all the diseased trees that are there, we mark the ones that are to be left behind, and the rest of them we take out. And we have a pristine area where cattle can graze. Andy can verify that, because we're doing up there where he grazes his cattle.
Yeah, because they did there in San Cristobal, and
You
It's all-
know, excellent work in the ski valley.
I'm like looking at that mountain and I'm like, wow, they,
It's also good for wildfires, because you take away all those ladder trees that are out there. Because, you know, if you have too many trees, that's where the fires go.
Yes.
That's what you have to do, is have defensible space around your homes. Right now, we're going to be cleaning acequias. I send out letters to my pacientes, telling them to clean their ditch banks and such, because we can't burn anymore. There is so much, so many people building, that if we start a fire, we might burn up the whole community. And you have to let people know.
One thing I was going to say, I suggested this to the Forest Service, but I'm going to say it to you since you might be able to transfer this knowledge to them. For the ski valley and any other mountainous areas, tell them to start the fires at the top and work their way down instead of at the bottom where the fires will go up the damn mountain if it gets out of control. Please. It seems very simple to figure that out, but people don't seem to be listening.
an example is in Vegas. That's the biggest example, the Forest Service.
Right, and Taos County is part of this program, and it's great. The thing is that each paciente that participates in it gets an acre. After they're done with their acre, we inspect it, and they get paid $300 for their expenses.
At these watershed meetings that Carlos referred to, that some of us are participating in, we just learned at our last session that, you know, the science involved, you know, when you have a dense foliage, the snow never reaches the ground and never permeates. And there's a certain, you know, there's a lot of attention going into understanding what kind of canopy would ensure the balance between the trees and the infiltration of the water. I think we're getting a lot of attention to that, and it is a really positive thing, you know, to know what that balance is, and also have these agencies that are participating, you know, basically with the community to find what the best practices are for fire protection, but also for making sure that we're recharging our streams with this snow and not losing it a substantial amount with these warming temperatures.
So, I think we're at the end, unless someone has something that's really, really burning, okay.
It's burning, but it was just to say that this water, and I wanted to open with it, and I wanted to ask for permission. If we can, who's the youngest person here at your meeting?
I think it's you.
No, tengo que cachar los Who's the youngest person here? We like to give this benefit. The thing is that the sense is your words, your knowledge is the bendición to that next generation. And you know that person will come up.
Right behind you.
And it's just a
Girl, behind you. Turn around. There you go.
So, in terms of thinking about well, the thing is, lo que quería compartir con ustedes era, es tan importante no solamente recordar nuestras tradiciones, pero ponerlas en práctica, ¿no? And so, even in terms of your meetings, find out who's the youngest person, show them what the symbolic importance of what water is, and give them your blessing that they're there. And where's our youngest person again? Right here.
Let's not quibble.
You give it the blessing out to the younger person. Where's the younger? Thank you, everybody. Gracias.
Thank you, Domingo. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming here.
Ya vamos a la acequia, van todos, agarra ya la pala para limpiar el bordo.
el agua en la primavera.